Hey everybody, Active Monster, back with Marvel Heroes. This time we got Juggernaut up on the chopping block, and we're going to do his release day preview here. Sorry, getting tells here. What's this guy? Anyways, it comes with two costumes, and this is the first one that he comes equipped with. And this is his Juggernaut Unstoppable costume. And it's a lot like his regular costume, which is basically the same thing with some red on it. I kind of like the one with the red on it because everyone else is running around with the tan one. And Juggernaut's oh so beefy. And he's got interesting. They changed the spirit mechanic and called it momentum. And so you use it not like spirit though. They at least changed over how that works, and I like that a lot because instead of just calling it something else and it working like spirit, it actually works something different than spirit. And so bringing him up, he starts off, he's level 1, he's got 5 durability already, 5 strength, so he starts off pretty potent. He's going to be a tough guy, and I like that a lot myself. And we'll go over his powers, and I'll go right to left. That's usually what I do anyways. And so we got the Avatar of Cyttorak. And we got the Crimson Force Field. This is going to be a nice little passive. And this passive includes a damage negation of 10%, a health bonus, a defense bonus, a regeneration bonus, so you get a passive regeneration. People inviting me to groups. And a 8% chance to block attacks. And you go invulnerable should you be defeated. So that's pretty nice. If you activate it, it's minus 25% movement speed and invulnerability for 1.5 seconds on a 20-second cooldown. So it's kind of interesting. You can go invulnerable when you want. I don't really use that part of it. Everything else is pretty awesome. The human Juggernaut. This is a toggle. You have 2 toggles, at least last time I knew. And this is toggle number 1. And this will give you damage rating from movement powers. This will give your big elbow a bonus damage from momentum increase. And it increases by points spent. So that's why it says plus 0%. But the more points you put into it, the more damage increase you get from it. Your momentum gain rate is increased by 5%. And your damage negated is 15% for 8 seconds when you hit with a movement power. So that's nice to get another 15% damage negation there. He's negating a lot of damage coming through. So momentum, what happens is as you move, you gain momentum. As you do certain abilities, you gain momentum. Certain abilities spend that momentum for extra damage. So he's Juggernaut, the unstoppable force. And that's how they tie in that momentum into his damage capabilities. So you're basically choosing between one of 2 attacks to beef up, or one of 2 different play styles, his movement abilities, or his next toggle. I'll just go straight to it, which is lean into it, which is damage rating plus 5 for melee abilities, none of his movement powers. And then Sunday Punch bonus damage from momentum is increased by 50%. Momentum's decay rate is reduced by 7.5%, and that goes up by more points spent. And your damage negated is 15% for 8 seconds when you hit with a melee power, non-movement power. So you got 2 choices there. Then Don't You Know Who I Am? This is another passive effect. It's really passive effect slash PvP skill, but it gives you toughness and it gives you a taunt, and it weakens. Oh, they changed it. This used to be the PvP. I ignore all CCs, but now it's the taunt, and it weakens all nearby enemies. So now you can tank. That's pretty nice. Wrath of Cyttorak. This is going to be one of two big abilities that you can use. This thing, when maxed out, hits like a truck. It's probably one of the hardest hitting things out there. I don't know if it hits as hard as it needs to hit because it's a 30-second cooldown, but I mean, naked, I think it hits for like 200,000, and I think that's the hardest hitting thing I've seen before. That's not a signature or ultimate, so that's still pretty potent. And it has increased critical chance, and it restores all your momentum. But it's on a 30-second cooldown. And that cooldown is shared with Scion of Cyttorak. And Scion of Cyttorak is basically a damage buff, which gives you damage rating, crit damage, and restores 20% of your maximum momentum per second for 8 seconds on a 30-second cooldown. So either one of those are pretty good. If you really like big hits, though, you're going to love that Wrath of Cyttorak. I mean, that thing hits like... it's got to be the hardest hitting thing in the game. And then we got his Unstoppable tree, which is, if you guessed it, is going to be tying into most of his movement skills. But he does have a melee attack in here, Earthquake. And Earthquake does a point-blank AoE, basically. You slam the ground, and it does physical damage, and then you spend 50% of your maximum momentum to increase the damage by 4% per 10 momentum spent. That's where it starts getting interesting here, because you can see 50% would be like 260. Well, we'll say 260, even though it would be 267. But 260, so per 10, that'd be up by 26% times 4. So you'd increase it by 108%. Or 104, yeah, 108%. And so effectively you do double damage. So that's how momentum starts tying in here. Can't be stopped. This is another passive ability. Oh, this is the crowd control ability now. Okay. Maybe it was before and I just missed them up. But this gives you damage rating, critical rating, based off your tenacity. You get the higher your tenacity, the more crit rating you get for 10 seconds when you use a power. And as any power, and your movement speed is increased as you gain momentum, up to 150 more at maximum momentum. So you get faster as you gain momentum as well. That's another way momentum ties into the character. They really worked this one in pretty good, so I like that as well. And then this gives you bonus tenacity, which in this case isn't useless because it gives you crit rating. Your crit rating bonus is based off of how much tenacity you have. And then we move into Big Elbow Drop. This is a melee area and movement ability. This basically moves you to the location of the cursor. You jump up and slam down with a big elbow drop. It does an AoE. And it's nice, knocks everything down, stuns everything. And you spend all remaining momentum to increase damage by 4% per 10 momentum spent. This one you can get a lot of bonus damage, as you can see. And this hits pretty hard. Stride is your movement speed. You start sprinting. Basically, you run really fast. And it restores momentum as you move it. So instead of spending momentum, you actually gain momentum while you're doing it. That's very nice also. Sunday Punch is the other tie-in skill. Remember, we had Sunday Punch and we had Big Elbow tie-in with the toggles. Sunday Punch. This one can only be used while above 50% maximum momentum. This one will hit pretty hard as well, but spend 50% of your maximum momentum to increase damage by 4% per 10 momentum spent. Has a stun duration as well, and it doesn't hit like an area. Unstoppable Charge. This is his signature ability. It basically works kind of like Siberian Express for Colossus, and You basically run around and everything that you're touching takes damage twice per second, except I think at 60 it's hitting for crazy amounts of damage twice per second. It's active for 6 seconds, and you're immune to crowd control, and it's got a 45-second cooldown. A little bit long of a cooldown for my flavor. I think on test it was 30 seconds and it was much better. But it does do a lot of damage. I don't know. I found it kind of necessary for some big old packs, like when you hit a big pack of trash leading up to bosses on Cosmics. I really liked it, so I don't know if I like it on 45-second cooldown. Seems pretty long to me. And then Devastating Charge, not my cup of tea, but this is a charge up ability. It wouldn't be Juggernaut if he didn't have it. You basically charge yourself up, and at 100% you can let go and do 100% more damage, and restores 50% of your maximum momentum. But it is on an 8-second cooldown. Now, Mystical Powerhouse is going to be most of your melee tree. Rope-a-Dope is a basic attack that restores maximum momentum. Kind of a handy thing now with all the ways to spend momentum. It's nice having ways to build momentum while you're standing still. This is one of the few ways that you can do it. Lariat, this is your basic charge, and it has an ability to hit an enemy at the end of the charge. So it's a little bit tough to actually hit enemies. It doesn't actually necessarily hit enemies as you run through them. But if you do, you restore maximum momentum as well. And when you hit an enemy, you also get +1 to movement powers, tenacity bonus, and the buff lasts for 8 seconds. Heavy Punch. Oh, the other thing with Rope-a-Dope is the more momentum you have, the higher attack speed this has, up to double at maximum momentum. So that's pretty interesting. That's going to come in really key. It's going to be hard to figure out your DPS on this skill if you're going to use a lot of attack speed augmentation, because it will double that unbuffed or buffed attack speed. At least it was on test, to double percentage. So if you got this to 1.5, you'd be attacking at 3 seconds. So it's very interesting. Heavy Punch. This one hits pretty hard. It's based off your momentum again. You can hit for up to double damage at maximum momentum. Enter the Fray. This is a nice skill, because one thing happens when you hit it and it goes off, momentum will not decay for 4 seconds. It's on a 4-second cooldown. If you are below 30% momentum, you gain 30% of your maximum momentum. If you're above 30% of your momentum, which is really what you want to be, you leave these tremors just like Hulk. And the tremors go off for twice per second, and the tremors last for 8 seconds. So you can have lots of little tremors around there. Well, at least 2 of them. Big Headbutt. This is kind of like Colossus again, except this leaves a bleed on there as well. It hits pretty hard. It's on a 4-second cooldown. You start tying in together with Enter the Fray. Round of Applause. This is like Hulk's slam, or a clap. And basically slam your hands together and everything around takes damage and they're left vulnerable. But this also spends momentum to increase damage. And then finally we got Barroom Brawling. This is a basic attack, and it reduces the cooldown of all offensive powers by 0.5 seconds per hit. So you can get some of these longer cooldown abilities on shorter cooldowns if you wanted to. This is attack speed's pretty good, 1.5, but really you're going to get half a second off per second. So you might be able to get that up to 1 second off per second. So I know if you're really trying to get this down to 15 seconds, you might be able to do that, but that's about the best you're going to get, I think, on Wrath of Cyttorak. And finally, Full Power. Juggernaut gains access to complete power of the gem of Cyttorak, gaining size and unfathomable power. During this time, Cyttorak's energy will burst open in random locations while Juggernaut is moving, and anytime he attacks his enemies, a piece of the fabric of reality itself is ripped apart. There's shockwave physical damage. There's also more physical damage per melee hit. Damage rating you gain. You're immune to crowd control. The buff lasts for 20 seconds on a 10-minute cooldown. And that's it. So, he looks pretty good. It was pretty decent on test. It looks like everything carried over as much as it was on test. So, I'll have to see if my build survived. And that's about it. So, well, it helps. Hope you enjoyed. And talk to everybody real soon once he's 60.